Hey, what's up everyone? It's Ray LUZIER, and this is my Pearl profile. Why did it's supposed to stick like that? How did I get my start as a musician? Well, it's weird because no one in my family's into music. No one's played an instrument. My uncle played bass drum in a high school marching band for like a year, and then he gave me a snare drum from the marching band, and I just remember going like, this is really cool. My parents always played tons and tons of music, so there was all kinds of things on, from the Beatles, Elvis, Chuck Berry, Zeppelin, you name it. The radio was always on, and I always remember like just gravitating towards the drums. I always like hit things. Like I had this little cassette case. Cassette kids, look that up. Back in the day, and I would like hit different sounds on it to make a bass drum and a snare, and I'd make cymbal sounds with my mouth, and I was just doing that from like when I was 4 or 5, and then I just went, they finally said like, hey, he might need a drum kit, so they got me this like Muppet kit, literally with Animal on the bass drum head, and then it just went from there. I got a semi-pro kit and a Pearl export, and then I just went there, and I just was self-taught for years and years and years. I just would put records on and play, and I always knew when Back in Black was on that it was a lot easier to play than Moving Pictures by Rush. But when you're young, you have no idea. You're just playing to whatever and trying to figure stuff out. So, but I knew at a very young age, probably before I even turned into a teen, that I'd be doing this the rest of my life. It was a really weird grasp on me, like grabbed a hold of me in a weird way. So yeah, but for a very young age, I started loving music. I think when my big arrival moment, maybe like knowing that I'm going to be a lifer and do this the rest of my life, and it's a pretty serious oath to pledge when you're young, because you just have no idea. You don't know the business, you don't know the ups and downs of like getting signed, getting dropped. You don't know any of that. You just know the love and the passion that you have for the music, and that's the most important thing. I always tell people, like the young people up and coming, like never lose that passion you had from the get-go, because the music business can squash you. So that when I've arrived, I think was like in high school when I was playing in marching bands, concert symphonic, jazz. I had a rock band on the side, I was playing a lot, and I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. Graduated from high school. 2 months later, packed up the church maxi wagon van and trucked across America to LA to go to Musicians Institute. And that's when I thought I was Joe Cool when I went out there. And little did I know, I was going to get my ass handed to me, literally, because there was so many things I didn't know about. I was just a rock metalhead off the farm. I had no idea, 118 acre, to Hollywood Boulevard I moved, and I had no idea what was about to happen to me. MI really introduced me to a lot of different styles. I didn't know that. I didn't even listen to jazz that much, or Latin or funk or reggae, and all the different styles. So I really got a crash course that year in stylistically. But then after that, and that's one of those things that gives the rest of your life. You don't ever stop learning in our business. That's the beautiful thing about it. You never get to a point where you're like, okay, I've reached this plateau, I'm going to stick around here. Never. And I always tell people, if you did realize that or reach that point, maybe you should do something else and maybe play drums on the side or something. But I knew myself, like I just wanted to embrace it and learn as much as I possibly could and keep, and I still am learning today. And I'm only 27. It's really weird. One of my favorite road stories. I've been touring for pushing 35 years now. I played with David Lee Roth for 8 years, from 97 to 05, and I played with Army of Anyone with the Stone Temple Pilot guys, and of course now Korn since 2007. And in my 17 years with Korn, it's completely different than the other situations and all the other bands I've ever toured with or been in. Everything that's about you, your personality, comes out on the road, because you're living, all of a sudden you're roommates with these crew guys, with these band members, and so you could musically get along with everyone on stage, but maybe off the deck it's a totally different situation. So I always tell people, road or crew, whatever, be cool, because you never know when you're going to see these people again. You know, if you want longevity in this business, you want to work, you have to be cool. You can't burn any bridges and all that. But one story that sticks out for me is on our way to the Boston Pops Orchestra. We played with them in Boston in 2004, I want to say, 2003, and it was 500,000 people on deck, and the whole thing leading up to that, all the just crazy anxiety and being on live television and playing for that many people, millions at home, having Keith, Lockhart behind you as instructing the Boston Pops, David Lee Roth in front of you. That was a pretty surreal moment, leading up into that. And but yeah, there's so many stories that I'll leave that for another time. So why choose Pearl drums? So there's there's a ton of companies out there. There's a ton of different brands. There's a ton of reasons why people are attracted to a certain company. When I was growing up, I would always see the Pearl logo. And of course, a lot of my favorite drummers used Pearl. And Peter Criss was funny because I would read the back of Kiss Alive 2 or whatever, and it would say, Kiss uses Gibson guitars and Pearl drums because they want the best. And I'm like, well, I want the best and I'm 7. Like, why can't I have the best? So it's like that literally is probably when it started, when I saw Peter play, because the whole X and this is pre-internet, when there was nothing around. It was like you only knew what you saw on TV, when you opened a magazine. So when you saw that logo or something, from anyone that I would ever see playing Pearl drums, from Picaro to Ian Paice to whoever, it was like, I just automatically went like, someday I'm gonna play that, So then when I got a Pearl export kit, it was a beautiful thing, because now I'm like, wow, this is happening. I'm playing these drums. This is on. It's popping. So I think, and it's like driving a different car. Like, you can drive your friend's car, but there's nothing like your own. And Pearl, to me, always felt like coming back home. It was always like this, like, yeah, I could play these drums, I could play those drums, but every time I sat on a Pearl kit, it was like, oh, I'm driving my car. So to me, that just stuck out. And I tried other brands in the past and kept swerving around back to Pearl. So Pearl, the best reason to play drums.